if one has to single out one chapter from the whole of Indian agriculture, which is going to be most important, and one infrastructure in the whole of Indian agriculture system that will be most significant, it will be irrigation. Now, irrigation is one such type of a topic where you can go on to think of an unimaginable variety of questions being asked here. It is one of those topics which can go on to have, again, the most diverse appendages that are going to be possible and that are going to be, again, imaginable. It is one of those chapters, the study of which will go on to give you actual brilliant insights into the functioning of the physiography of India, the climate of India, the underlying soil, and how is it that the water flow is going to be getting itself regulated. It is also one of those chapters that will go on to provide you the maximum solid base for the study of many chapters in regional planning, command area development program, for example, and then you're going to pick up sections on settlement, linear settlements, for example, transportation, inland transportation, for example. If you have to pick up industry, that is again going to be part of rural industry in this region. If you have to pick up a resource section, then how is it that water resources are being managed? And if you want to pick up contemporary issues of it, then how is it that floods and drought can be controlled with the help of such type of irrigation? Irrigation, all in all, is reflective of the underlying geology of India, underlying structure of India, underlying climatic conditions that India has, and a type of a soil and the returns people wish to get from all of these resources. Irrigation is that significant a topic in general for us. Now, having said that, we must go on to come to terms of talking about what all that is required to study in irrigation. Other than the significance of irrigation, you require to know different forms of irrigation, different varieties of irrigation, different issues that goes on to confront with irrigation. And as far as possible, we require to know the problems that Indian irrigation sector happens to be facing, and how is it that all that we require to sort it out, we require to take it into a solution form of sorts. That is what all is going to be required in this condition or in this case. That's why the whole of this discussion will go on to begin with talking about the significance of irrigation and how is it that irrigation can be made more significant. One is that water is going to be very indispensable for agricultural production. Now, this can go on to be a simple point. It can go on to be a single point. But just go on to think of it. That is what all that is going to be written as part of it. That is, maybe that you are going to be asked a question as it is that the questions are being asked. That is, they will go on to ask for micro topics. It's going to be a micro topic specialization of sorts. I repeat it, it's like a micro topic specialization of sorts in this case. And when we are going to be talking about it, we are talking about why is it that water is indispensable for agriculture production. Because plants require water in a defined amount, at a defined time, in a defined manner, and unless these are going to be provided to the plants don't go on to grow also. So for the purpose of growth of plants, what all that we going to require is we require that plants are able to grow with some amount of water. That is going to be one part. The second part is that we do going to be having a very good amount of rich, fertile resource, soil. The soil conditions that we're going to be having is going to be a real rich one. How is it that we can go to use this soil? Of course, if the soils are going to be dry, there is no way that we can go to use it. Soils require to be provided with some amount of water before we are in any position to use this soil. Now just think of it, what we are talking about is that is the soils of Rajasthan have been productive even before. But why is it not that they have made any type of a significant dent in this condition has been essentially associated with the non-availability of water in this case. as soon as water started being provided to the soils of Rajasthan, of course, that was going to be through Ganga-Nagar Canal, then the complexion of the whole of the region went for a complete change of sorts. That has been another factor associated with it. You'll also going to understand that is soils are going to be as productive as the amount of water that is going to be made available to them. The soils may be a bit more permeable, like a red soil. Now, if there's going to be red soil, then the amount of water needed can go on to become even more of sorts. This is largely because that allows some amount of a flowage of water. Some of these soils can go on to hold water. Alluvial soil is in a position to hold water. Black soil goes on to hold it even more. But then some of these type of soils will go on to be most productive only if some amount of water is provided to them. Then the third factor is to utilize the edaphic agroclimatic conditions for growing a variety of type of crops. What we are talking about is edaphic conditions, that is the plant conditions. We have different type of agroclimatic conditions, and in different type of agroclimatic conditions, if certain things go on to work, certain things go on to function, and if certain things are going to be really workable, then that is going to be only with the availability of water. Water is going to be that significant because even in those places where there are going to be different type of edaphic factors, there will be somewhat a controlled supply of water may be required. We have to talk of our water resources. Supposing we are going to be talking that India is going to be very rich in terms of water resources, then for what purpose? What purpose does it serve that we are rich in terms of water resources? The only way we can go to think and we can go to say that it goes into serve a purpose, that is going to be through, it's only going to be through surface and groundwater utilization. And it is this utilization and its conversion into some type of an institutionalized form is what we go on to be calling it by the name of irrigation. This is what exactly irrigation is. And then if we are going to be talking about if rainfall has a spatio-temporal variation, irrigation goes on to become even more significant. Now take a look at it. What exactly is the most important characteristics of the monsoons? The most important characteristic of monsoon, as you will go on to find it, in many places it will be written, it will be uncertainty of monsoon, unpredictability of monsoon. Now mind it, this is one word that is the very, very, very negative. Why it is negative, and you should never go on to use this word, that is uncertain. Uncertain is a judgmental word. Uncertain is a word that is a conclusion that you have drawn already. And when you go on to draw a conclusion about anyone in general, whenever you go on to make a judgment, you are not going to be passing a judgment towards that person or towards that phenomena or towards that event. You are reflecting your own attitude most of the times, and without you even knowing that part at all. So what we are saying in this case is that is if the monsoons have certain type of characteristics, it is these characteristics of monsoon that make it imperative for us to have irrigation. And the most important characteristic of monsoon happen to be, that is it goes on to have a variation. This variation is going to be called as a spatio-temporal variation. That is the variation that takes place in space and time. And the amount of variation that goes on to take place in space and time is what all is going to be important and significant, because if the rainfall would have been by and large uniformly distributed through the whole of the year, if you knew when the rainfall is coming, if you knew when exactly is the time for rainfall and the amount of rainfall was also going to be known to us, then there was no need for irrigation at all. Irrigation supplements the water requirement of the crop in such a manner that it makes it available when there is no rainfall. And if there is going to be a high amount of rainfall, of course, some of the crops can go to withstand that. Never ever, therefore, use the word uncertain, unpredictable. The basic characteristic of monsoon is that it's characteristic. You should never go on to change any characteristic into a judgmental statement. So, When you say it is unpredictable or it is going to be uncertain, that is judgmental, the characteristic is it varies in space and time. And that is a characteristic. Because it goes into varies, you show your adaptation by managing your water resources. That's the only way that you can go to deal with this type of a situation. And that is why irrigation is significant for India. And irrigation is significant for India because of irrigation, you go on to increase the value of the land. India's land is going to be as valuable as you can go on to make it out, as valuable as you can go on to think it. That is why it is going to be significant. As valuable as the amount of water that is possessed, as valuable as the amount of water that it can actually go on to think of having as well. That is the significance of irrigation in this case. The second part of it with respect to irrigation is going to be associated with why is it that it is going to be significant. Significance of irrigation in general that we have, in any case we are going to be talking about. There is the more important significant factor in this case is a unequal distribution of rainfall, and that is region wise, crop wise, season wise. Now, when we go on to talk about agriculture specifically, then we go on to bank on three factors. There is it that irrigation is significant, and if it is significant, then how is it significant? It is significant because it goes on to be having some region-wise connotation, some season-wise connotation. That is, in some places the amount of rainfall will be more, in some places the amount of rainfall will be less. Region-wise, season-wise, in some of the seasons the amount of rainfall will be high or low. And crop-wise, that is, some of these crops will go on to require a very high amount of water in comparison to the other one. Because of it, we require a reservoir of water with us so that we don't go on to find it problematic to solve it. That is what we go on to be thinking of. Of course, it is going to be significant because of the fact that we want to control. And what are the things that we are going to control? We are going to be talking about the first factor, as you can go to talk about, was that is it's going to be related to rainfall. So there is a paucity of rainfall, of course, when it is variation, a spatio-temporal variation, imbalance in the availability of rainfall, and that is going to be talking about imbalance, not uncertainty, as you can think of. So that is going to be one of these aspects. Every aspect, that is, let's say we're going to talk about why is it that, what exactly are the characteristics of rainfall distribution in a spatio-temporal variation that prompts the need for irrigation. Now, that can go on to be a type of a question related only to one point in this case, and that is what we have talked about. It is one point. The second point in this case is going to be associated with the control. That is, irrigation can go on to lead to flood control, drought control. It can go on to improper drainage of water, it can go to prevent improper drainage and water logging, and so many of them. Just think of it. Most of these schemes that we have thought of, one is the government scheme, that is construction of the large scale projects. Now, these large scale projects happen to be of a different type. And what exactly is it that these large scale projects are? Now, these large scale projects are hydropower projects, multi-purpose projects. Now, these multi-purpose projects go on to serve twin purpose. The one purpose that is going to be flood control. The second purpose is, of course, irrigation. The third purpose is going to be hydropower generation. That is one. So, they are going to hold water, and then when there is no water, they allow a controlled flow of water. We repeat it. They are going to hold water, and when there is no water, they allow a controlled flow of water. It is this controlled flow of water that we are looking for. It is this controlled flow of water that we are talking about. That is irrigation. That is going to be one part. Second part associated with flood is irrigation canals and some of these type of diversion weirs and inundation canals have been instrumental in controlling floods even before also. Now think of it, what exactly it used to be done. There is the inundation canals used to be those type of canals where as the river water goes on to increase, then this water will naturally find its outlet until it starts finding its outlet and going to move in all the directions. So the water goes on, that means the river will never going to flood beyond a uncontrolled management. So it will go on to, the moment it goes on to reach a limit, the whole of the water will go to spill off. The place from where the water spills off, now that goes on to take the shape of a channel, a canal. So the water moves itself into canals. And then this canal goes on to be having a very, very, very wide network, not small, very wide network. That means you can think of it, the waters of Ganga had been taken from not one, not two, not three, maybe something like some hundreds of places. That is the moment the Ganga river kept on increasing in its bankful condition, trying to, the water spills off, finds itself into canals, not one of them, hundreds of canals. These canals go on to bring water hundreds and 200s of kilometers away from the river, and that is very, very gradual. It's not that they start moving very, very fast, because in the Gangetic plain, the rivers have a tendency to rise slowly only. And then they're going to get themselves spread out. The entire of the waters of Ganga goes on to get itself spread out in the entire of the state through these type of inundation canals and diversion weirs. Now, these diversion weirs and inundation canals used to serve twin purpose. The first was that they will go on to allow water to be retained in that place. That's one. They will go on to increase the water table. The groundwater will go on to get self-recharged. And that if there is going to be some amount of water, that will go on to be used for the purpose of inland water navigation as well. So it is going to be inland water navigation that is going to be more important and significant aspect here. That is how exactly floods is going to be taken care of. That's one part. Second is going to be talking about drought. Now we have talked about floods. Now that's the same way that we can go to manage drought type of conditions also. And how is it that we can go to manage this drought type of a condition? Now this is the drought type of a condition can be managed in a completely different way. And what is that? We have just now talked about, that is during the rainy season, during the flood season, you allow the river to attain its bankful condition. Then the river water spills. Then the spilled water finds itself into canals. These canals go on to hold the water. And when they go on to be holding the water, they will go on to allow the percolation of water. When they go on to be allowing this holding and they allow the percolation of this water, then it is in this capacity. It is going to be in this capacity that it will go on to allow infiltration during the summer months. For the summer months, the water table to rise. And the water will go on to be retained in this place for the whole of the year. And because the water is going to be retained in this year for the whole of the year, therefore, the groundwater drought possibility is going to be completely weeded out of this place. That goes on to be drought condition. Third is improper drainage and water logging will be prevented. Canal is, or let's say irrigation is one of the means, and canal is going to be one of the means of providing irrigation. So if there is a place that goes on to undergo water logging, we can go on to connect it with some type of a channel. That will go on to become a canal. So water logging will be prevented in this case, and also that will be able to provide drainage to that condition also. It can go on to be in a hilly top, it can go on to be in other regions as well. That is, the management of a drainage will go on to go a long way in ensuring the health of the soil. The fourth in this case is going to be preventing soil erosion or degradation in this case here. So that is, soil erosion will not going to take place because the soils are going to become too dry. That's one part. And second is, because of a forceful water runoff, irrigation will go on to provide some amount of soaking of the water by the soil, and that is how it will go on to move. It will also go on to prevent the washing away of the nutrients. The nutrients are not going to be washed away so easily for them. That is going to be another factor associated with it. That's why irrigation is significant in this case. Irrigation is significant also to increase the cultivable land, and where these are the dry areas. Imagine all of these areas, none of these areas will go on to be significant for irrigation or significant for agriculture, because they are going to be completely parched without any water, despite the fact that the soil will go on to consist of a good amount of good amount of nutrient facility, it won't be able to do it. That's going to be one of them. That's right. Second is it also goes on to provide some amount of drainage to the waterlogged soil. It is this waterlogged soil that will be provided with some amount of a drainage. So because it goes on to provide drainage, that's why it is going to be significant. And then it will go on to allow the use of the land for non-crop use. That means all the land that has been non-usable and essentially for the purpose of a crop cultivation, that will be brought under use. And not to talk about that is the best way to reclaim the wasteland is going to be through irrigation. That is the best way to provide to enhance the nutrient capability of the water is going to be through wasteland reclamation. It can go on to allow a good amount of land to be used for rotation also in this case. So if you want to increase a cultivable land, that can go on to become another question. How is it that irrigation can go on to help increase the amount of cultivable land? And we are trying to answer no less than 20, 30, 40 questions in this case. So that is how exactly it will go on to do it as well. Then irrigation is going to be significant for introducing innovative technology in agriculture. It's significant, that is why it is. For example, we cannot go on to insert high-yielding variety seeds without irrigation, because high-yielding variety seeds happen to require water at the right time, in the right amount, and at the right place. Without it, they cannot go on to move ahead with it. That's one. Second is about improved fertilizers, that means intake of it. Now, in any case, if you are going to provide chemical fertilizers to the soil, to the plant, what it does is that that is only something like some 28 to 33, 34% of it is going to be utilizable in any manner possible. We are going to be talking about that it is going to be utilized or utilizable in certain manner possible. And when we are talking about utilization in certain manner possible, how is it that we are going to be talking about? We are essentially talking about high yielding varieties, and these are these high yielding varieties that will go on to go a long way. Now, talking about we cannot go on to use high yielding varieties without again fertilizer at the right time. We can use fertilizers only because there will be water. Unless the fields are flooded, there is no way that you can go on to throw fertilizers. In the flooded fields, when you are going to throw fertilizers, what they will going to do? That is, the water will go on to make a solution for itself. It is this water that will go on to go to the roots of the plants, and this is how the plants will go on to take water. That is going to be with respect to improved fertilization and of course mechanization as well. Irrigation will also go on to allow improved growth pattern, because it will go on to allow double cropping, triple cropping, multiple cropping. And how is it that it will go on to do it so? When you provide irrigation, you obviate the need of the farmer to keep its land fallow. We are talking about the farmer will not be required to keep his land empty, to keep his land fallow. And because the farmer will not require and the need to keep his land fallow, consequently, he will go on to prepare the field for the next crop. So maybe that Zad season is one that is going to be utilizable. Now, because it is going to be utilizable, it can go on to be one season, that is Kharif, another season, Rabi, and the third season that is going to be Zad. In all of them, irrigation, the availability of water will go on to mean that not one crop, not two crops, it's going to be three crops that we can go on to have. And that's what we are going to be talking about in this case here. Then, of course, it goes on to lead to the change in the cropping pattern also. With irrigation, you have been able to cultivate rice even in Rajasthan. With irrigation, you have been able to cultivate even rice in some places of drier regions of Haryana, Punjab as well, and Uttar Pradesh as well. Now, that is a change in the cropping pattern in these type of places. That's so significant from that angle. It is also going to be leading to increase in the production and productivity, that is yield we are going to be talking about. And of course, not to talk about the prosperity, and as you can go to take a look at it, there is increased income from increased production, the purchasing power increases, it creates additional employment, it is going to be important from the perspective of cottage industry. for two reasons. Why? How is it going to lead to cottage industry? Cottage industry essentially requires that the farmers are a bit free from agriculture. That's number one. Second is that there is going to be good amount of a diversity of the type of resources that are going to be available in the region. That's the second part. And the third part in this case is it will going to enhance new type of innovations, because the farmers know that there will be water and they can go for certain type of innovations. They will be in a position to take certain type of risks as well. We are going to be talking about enhancing capital formation and develop agriculture economy. So the development of agriculture economy is going to have its way paved for it. That's the way. That was about the significance of agriculture in India to begin with. There are three main forms of irrigation in India. One is by wells, another is by canals, and the other is going to be by tanks. Now, these forms of irrigation in India are determined by its geographical conditions, geological conditions, climatic conditions, all of them combined. For example, in the northern part of the country, that is in the plains of the country, it is mostly canal irrigation and well irrigation. Now, there are reasons for why exactly it is going to be canal or well irrigation in the northern part of the country. One of the reasons is that the soil is alluvial. The second is that the water table is generally going to be high in that region. Now, that allows the wells to be sunk easily. It is easy to excavate an alluvial soil in comparison to a rocky terrain that is going to be in the peninsular portions. The third is that the alluvial soil is always going to be soaking of water, and in some places the water table can go on to be as high as just below 5 or 6 feet even beneath the surface. That is going to be North Bihar. The third part is that in all of these regions there is a sufficient amount of rainfall to ensure that much amount of infiltration. The fourth part, of course, that goes on to favor well irrigation in this place is that the whole of the region is flat, and there is a good amount of groundwater recharge that keeps on taking place that prompts the farmer to go on to have one well with one of them. That means every family can go on to own one well in this case. Now, from another perspective, as you can go on to see it, it is easy for even canal water to flow along the natural slope, because the whole of this region goes on to be sloping towards south and towards east. So, anything that is going to be constructed in that region, supposing a canal has been constructed in the northern part of the country, then this canal can always go on to allow its water to be naturally flowing towards one portion. Now, that is a tremendous amount of an advantage because we don't have to prompt the water to flow in a certain defined direction. The water in this case, as we talked about, that is the water table is high, and because the water table is high, it goes on to intersect with the water of the canal. That means that is from the base of the canal, from the base of the channel of the canal, the water table is not deeper than that. Had it been that the water table would have been deeper than the base of the canal, and there would have been a big amount of a gap between it, then all of the canal water would have lost its water to underground form. The whole of it would have lost itself into the underground form. Now, we are going to be talking about something different in this case here. What is happening and what has happened in the northern Indian portion is that is in the entire of the region, the water table is high enough to be crisscrossing the base of the canal. So, the canals are always going to be perennial as well, despite the fact that of course it can go on to have some amount of water in it through some rivers. And these canals are going to be easily maintained and easily done because these canals can go be inundation canal. Inundation canal means that is the water goes on to find itself into the canal only when the rivers goes on to get inundated. These are the type of diversion weirs from which have been taken from the rivers and they go on to get themselves distributed in the whole of the region, as much amount of an area and as much amount of a channel length that is going to be possible. This again goes on to be advantage to the canal irrigation. And of course, canal irrigation and canal irrigation goes on to ensure that since the soil is going to be fertile, it is always going to be productive to make a canal, and always goes on to be productive also to obtain the leverage and obtain it back from the canal as well. That is a distinct possibility. Now, we are going to be talking about something else in this case. Supposingly that we want to build a canal. Now, when we go on to wish to build a canal in peninsular India, it will be difficult for many reasons. One of them is that the excavation of a canal from a solid rock is going to be a really stupendous task. Second is that even if you have built up a canal, then in South India, in peninsular India, the settlements are going to be dispersed. It's not going to be as compact as that of North India. The settlements are dispersed. So, there will be one settlement here, and another will be going to be something like some 25 kilometers away, still another something like 40 kilometers away. Now, in North India, in the peninsular, in the non-peninsular region, essentially in the Gangetic Plain region, the whole of this region goes on to be having a settlement pattern that is compact. That means every 2 kilometers or 3 kilometers there is a village. So that allows a greater amount of usability. That is the second factor. The third factor is the slope of the peninsula is going to be indeterminate because of its rolling nature. That means it goes on to be a rolling surface. Consequently, the slope is always going to be indeterminate in this case. And that will go on to prompt a huge amount of a cost of allowing the canal to flow in one direction. The fourth is that is we cannot go on to build a canal in that place also because even if you go on to build a canal, the surface is rocky and the rivers are going to be non-perennial in comparison to the perennial rivers in the northern part of the country. So the whole of the water will go to evaporate, and that will be a bare surface and a barren surface that will be left behind. Now, what peninsular India goes on to be having is, of course, wells also can't be built in those type of places because in the peninsular part of the country, wells are going to be wells cannot go on to be constructed because most of this water goes on to be in fractures or cleavages. In the northern portion of the country, it is going to be in the form of alluvial soil of sorts. Now, that is going to be one advantage in that place, and here it goes on to be having a different type of an advantage altogether. Now, what we go on to talk of it in this case now is that because the wells in this place you cannot go on to sink wells because again the surface is too rocky, and the wells can go on to, even if it is that the wells have been sunk, they will go on to dry out very easily. The second is that is, since there is nothing called as a permanent water table in that region, sometimes the wells require to be dug very deep, and still there is no guarantee to the fact that the water will go on to remain in those wells. What you're going to find in peninsular India is there are going to be a good number of bowl-shaped depressions in the whole of the Telangana region, Rayalaseema region, and even in Karnataka and Tamil Nadu also. Now, these are going to be bowl-shaped depressions, and what you require to do is just that some places from where the water that can go on to be accumulating in these places, if that water that accumulates and that is likely to find an outlet, just going to plug that outlet with a small check dam of sorts. It's a very small dam. So what you will going to do is that you are going to create a reservoir in that place. So that is what that is going to be done also. These are the type of reservoirs that we are going to be calling it by the name of tanks. So tank formation and tank construction and tank irrigation goes on to become an easy job in that place. Such type of a tank can never be constructed in the northern part of the country, largely because where will you going to construct this tank? If you are going to construct a tank deep within, then you will have to extract water. In peninsular India, it is going to be high up. It is going to be high up, and that is where the water goes on to remain. And because it is going to be high up, it is elevated of such. It's like almost like a mini volcanic cone of such, and that is where the water rests. It is easy to take water out of the tanks. In the northern portion, you have to sink this tank into the surface. And when you are going to sink it, what will happen? All the water will go on to remain there, but you will have to extract water. That is going to be one of these factors. You cannot go on to create a mound-like situations in the northern part of the country at all. This is not possible. You can go on to create a dam much more easily in peninsular India. But you cannot go on to create a dam in Patna, because where exactly is it that the water will be held? Even if you are going to create a big mound in the northern portion, what will happen is that this mound can go to collapse anytime. That is, the water percolating through it will go to allow it to collapse. It's like you create an artificial mound of sorts in that place. You are not going to be creating an earthen band of sorts in this case. So, in peninsular India, the most dominant feature is going to be the construction of a tank. In the northern portion, it is going to be canals, it is going to be also wells. Now, we do not go on to say that wells and tanks, wells and canals cannot go on to be constructed in the peninsular portion. They are, and they are there. Everywhere, wherever the facilities are going to be good enough in this case. Even in some places where there are going to be fractures, there will be wells. And in some alluvial terrains also, that we can go on to find canals as well in that place. So, the distribution of canals, wells and tanks follows that type of a geography, that goes on to follow that type of terrain. And these are, and having studied that, it goes on to become easy for us now to understand and study what exactly are going to be the advantages and limitations of different sources of irrigation. To begin with, wells always going to be having, as you can go on to take a look at it, wells always going to be having a high degree of utility in this case. That's one. Utility in the sense that is, you can go on to use a well for irrigation, you can go on to use it for drinking purpose, you can go on to use it for a variety of other things as well. Then it has a higher irrigation efficiency in the sense that is a small well that is constructed that will go on to irrigate a greater amount of an area in comparison to that of a canal, which is going to be much more larger, and also that the amount of investment required in canal is going to be very high. Wells are under farmer's control. Every farmer can go on to make it. It also goes on to save the land because it requires a very less amount of an area. And also that it goes on to help in the exploitation of or utilization. Better still will be utilization of the underground water resources, which can go on to lie generally unutilized. Now, the biggest advantage now when we are going to be having a sustainability as the plank is, that is, it's devoid of environmental problems like siltation, like salinization, with which canal is going to be generally associated with them. The much bigger advantage that we can go to think of it going to be, well is going to be one form that is always going to be replenishable. When we going to say that well form, that is the form of irrigation is going to be replenishable, it means that you afforest the region, increase the water table, then reforest the region, increase the water table, make water harvesting structures, replenish the water table, and that is why it is going to be a renewable source of a water resource. But despite all these advantages, it goes on to be having limitation. Incidentally, one of the limitations of the wells in this case can go on to be, in some places people have utilized the groundwater to such an extent that the water table has gone for an irreversible decline. That is one. There are some areas in South Arcot district in Tamil Nadu, in Mehsana district in Gujarat, where the water table has gone for such type of an irreversible decline. The main limitation is that the water level in the well changes with the amount of rainfall. Higher amount of rainfall, and that goes on to get elevated. Lower amount of rainfall, that goes on to go down. Second is, the well water is brackish in some parts. Brackish, that means it goes on to be consisting of some amount of soil, it is going to be acidic as well. Now, under such a condition, if you can go to provide this water to the crops, then the crops are going to be, not exactly, they can go to get destroyed completely, but then the productivity will go on to decrease drastically in this case. Now, well water is going to be in demand mostly in the dry season, and that's precisely what we're going to say. When the water is going to be demanded most, they go on to dry out. That is going to be the case associated with it. So, most of the wells go on to dry in hot season, and the demand is going to be greater. And we did say that sometimes the over exploitation of it is going to be responsible for for the intrusion of salt water. In some places we have done it so. For example, where all that we have done it so? We have done it in places like that of Mehsana, South Arcot district, where the water taken out from the wells have been so high and the groundwater has been exploited so high that it has allowed the intrusion of the salt water from the sea in this case. That has been a condition associated with it. That is going to be well irrigation in India. The second form of irrigation is going to be that of tube wells. That is the difference in this case is that it goes on to be mechanized, it goes on to be machine. And of course, this requires, the conditions are the same in this case except for the fact that it is going to be a good type of a soil that can go on to be there. Adequate subsoil water, the depth of the water table should not go to exceed 16-17 meters as it can go on to be in Punjab, Haryana and other regions. That means the maximum depth that the well can go on to reach in these places is going to be close to that of 50 feet and so. That is, these are the conditions, and the water can be taken directly to the places required, not exactly that we have to create certain type of a channel for it. That is, where it can go to bore a tube well anywhere that we going to like, and the water will be required in exactly the same places. It can go to suit the small holdings that we have. The problem with Indian farms is that they're going to be having small holdings, and this is one of the reasons that the canal water cannot go on to be always helpful. Of course, in period of drought, that is, the tube will still continue to give sufficient amount of water, largely because it's mechanized and it's going to be having machines through which it can go to extract water from deeper within. Tank irrigation has certain type of advantages and disadvantages. For example, tank goes on to help utilize water which can otherwise go on to go waste. Tank irrigation is found in all those regions where there is a surface water that is going to be rocky. Now, we talked about that fact, that is, tank irrigation can never go on to be functioning well in northern part of the country because all the water will go on to sink. It requires a condition where the terrain is rocky, where the surface is rocky, where the base is rocky, so it does not go on to allow this water to sink at all in this case. That is going to be one. So, it may go on to utilize water which might go on to go west. Second is that it covers a larger area for irrigation compared to wells and tube wells, because it is out of these type of tanks, that is, a good number of villages are located around the tanks, which are generally in Andhra Pradesh called as Palli, that is a hamlet in English or even in Hindi as well. So, it can go on to allow irrigation despite the subsoil water. Even though there is no subsoil water, it can still go on to allow such type of a resource. And even where river water is not going to be available, the deposit of silt at the base of the canal is going to be nutrient and may be used sometimes as a manure also in this case. The limitations in this case is that tanks do go on to get silted up pretty quickly, and when they go on to get silted up quickly, then they require to be maintained, they require to be dredged. That's one. So, of course, the water is going to be silt free. They do go on to get silted, and when the water is going to be silt free, so it has a not so much amount of a manuring property as maybe that is the canals of North India can go on to have it. The tanks are required mostly when there is a low rainfall. Now, the irony is that when there is a low rainfall, all the tanks also going to get dried out as well. Now, that is going to be an irony. So, tanks require to be maintained very effectively, and that requires a very good community participation for the purpose of its maintenance. And generally, wherever there is such type of a community participation is going to be absent, you will observe that these are the areas that goes on to become a source for disputes. These are the areas that become disputed, and all the water, when it goes into a dispute, it is this dispute that allows even the tank serviceability to be dropped down, that is to decrease also. Now, we are in this case going to be talking about also that the water that goes on to remain in this place, this water can go on to become stagnant, and that goes on to get self-evaporated. And because they are going to get evaporated, there is going to be some amount of wastage. The third form of irrigation is going to be that of a canals. Now, canals are going to be of two types. One of them is going to be called as inundation canal. The second is going to be called by the name of perennial canal. Inundation canal is going to be a simple flood water drainage system. That is, when the rivers are going to get flooded, the water from the rivers will going to find its way in different direction. That is inundation. Perennial is going to be, that is, a dam is constructed to arrest the flow of the river in this case. We are going to be talking about a dam is going to be constructed to arrest the flow of the river in this case, and that the river water is going to be released during a opportune time. There are many type of canals that have been made in the country. Some of them are going to be very, very well known and very well branded. Indira Gandhi Canal, as you can go to look at it, that is going to be one of them. That is going to be very well utilized and very well known as well. The other is going to be the Siddhartha Canal in Uttar Pradesh, which is going to be also such type of a canal. Sirhind and Yamuna Link Canal is going to be another one of them, and so on and so forth. Now, these canals are going to be having some relative advantage. One of them is that it's a relatively cheap method of irrigation. When we say cheap method, in the sense that is if the water is going to be flowing, if it is not going to be deliberately constructed in this case, we are talking about if it is that the water can go to flow in this place, not deliberately constructed. Otherwise, the same thing can go on to become a limitation. Just think of it. Canal water is cheap, it can go on to be very expensive also. Why cheap? Because if there are going to be certain channels that have been established maybe during the Mughal period or maybe during the earlier period, what we can go on to think of in this case is that is all the water will go on to flow, and that will go on to flow along the terrain. And when this water goes on to flow along the terrain, then the flow of this water along the terrain will go on to allow flow to take place naturally. Now, if it is that the canal has been constructed, how is it that a canal is going to be constructed? First, you're going to build a dam, you acquire an area for the reservoir, to flood the reservoir, then you're going to take a channel out at the base of the dam, then you're going to acquire, that means acquisition of a land must going to take place for the purpose of canal construction. That acquisition that has taken place, that will going to cost you money. The construction of the canal will going to cost you money. And when you have taken it out to the farmer's field, then again you have to construct channels that will going to provide water from the canal to the farmer's field. So at every place there is expense, and expense. To such an extent that is, we did went on to find out the fact that even if it is that we have constructed canals, I repeat it, not natural canals of sorts, that is the recently constructed canals. So some of these canals that we have actually constructed, these constructed canals, the expense associated with this type of constructed canals which have been taken out of the base of the dam go on to be no less than 60,000 rupees per hectare. They are very, very, very expensive that way. But some of those old inundation canals that have been constructed, they are very good. It is these old inundation canals that are going to provide you the benefit of one, water harvesting, second, flood control, and third, it also goes on to provide the benefit of inland water navigation. It's just like that. When the river will going to get flooded, the water will spill off. As this water spills off, it goes on to move in a canal. It is this canal water that goes on to move that is going to be used for the purpose of harvesting water, percolation, infiltration, and then thereafter any type of utilization as well. From the canals, the water supply is going to be assured, and it is going to be easy. This is water supply is assured and easy. And of course, it goes on to have a control and supply or provision of water on a perennial basis if it is going to be taken out from a dam. That is going to be by and large easy in this case. But the limitations are, of course, every area cannot be irrigated. Now, particularly the problem with canal irrigation is going to be that is let's say a canal has been constructed. Now, even if it is that a canal has been constructed, you will have to provide water from the canal to the farmer's field. Something like 1 kilometer beneath the canal. That means 1 kilometer away from the canal. Now the chances are that there may be a goon that is going to be on the banks of the canal. He will not going to allow the water to be taken out. Chance number 1. That's one. Second is, there's a second chance also. The second chance in this case is that the second possibility is that even if it is that you go on to construct a channel, no farmer will be able to give you the land unless you acquire that land. And when you're going to acquire that land, that again goes on to cost you. The third part is, supposing you have acquired the land as well and you have provided a channel. Now there is a possibility that maybe that I'm going to say that I'm going to require the water first, and someone else goes on to say that they will going to require the water first. Now there will be ensuing a fight. And it is this fight that will be exploited, in this case, by the politicians of the region. Now, when they go on to be exploiting this type of a difference, canals have actually gone on to become a minefield of all the type of disputes. Second problem, so canals are not going to be riddled with any type of an advantage. Every area cannot be irrigated. Canals, the whole of the command area can't be irrigated. That is, the canals that have been taken out and the provision for obtaining water from the last ditches to the farmer's field, that is going to be absent. Now, if the canal is not going to be lined means that is the base of the canal goes on to get lined with something like what we're going to call it as maybe sometimes concrete, sometimes with HDPE, high densely polyethylene, sometimes with HDPE and sometimes with concrete as well. Now, under such a condition, when it goes on to get itself lined with HDPE, the problem that goes on to take place under such a condition is that such type of a problem will be that is the water will going to seep down and that will going to raise the water table. As the water table is raised, then that will going to lead to water clogging in the whole of the canal area. The entire of the canal area there will be water logging. Imagine there is a canal passing hereby and the water is going to table is raised in that place. And if you're going to provide water from canal, take it out and then going to provide it, the problem will be that the area will going to become waterlogged. Once waterlogged, then that's a minefield of a problem. The water will evaporate, leave the salt behind, and as it is that salt is going to be left behind, then that is going to lead to salinization. So waterlogging and salinization goes on to become a major problem associated with it. The third is wastage of water through evaporation and seepage. Of course, if it is that the water table is going to be deep, all the water from the canal will going to seep down. Of course, so once you go on to make a lining, the cost will go on to increase even further. Then again to prevent what you're going to say that is again to prevent seepage by the canals, lining is required, which again will going to entail some amount of a higher cost of sorts. Now, canals all in all have not proved very effective in India and not going to be very people friendly as well, largely because of the disputes that they have invited, largely because of the fact that they have been ecologically unsound, largely because of the fact that they have entailed a very high cost, largely because of the fact that it has entailed another launching of the program that is called as Command Area Development Program. Now, every one of you will be generally advised to take a look at this program to understand the full complexion of the problems associated with it and how is it that we seek to solve these type of problems associated with canal irrigation. All of you, because this chapter will be incomplete without a reference to Command Area Development Program. That's a topic in regional planning. So other than that, other than canal, you do going to be having modern techniques of irrigation. So that will go to include drip irrigation. It's a type of a micro irrigation system and the purpose is that the water will go to drip at a place and that is how it will go to save water. It's a major farm. How exactly you can go to do that? You can go to take a pipe. There are going to be certain holes in pipe through which these holes the water will go to drip, drop by drop. That will go to save water. That's what is significant in this case. Then the other is going to be sprinkler irrigation. That is the water that is going to be taken. This water will go on to get itself sprinkled throughout, and when it is going to be sprinkled throughout, then it is in this form of a sprinkling that it can go on to save water. Of course, some of this water can go on to dry out as well and evaporate as well. But the sprinklers are especially ideal for efficient coverage of small to large area. This is what we are going to be the biggest advantage, especially ideal for efficient coverage of a small to large area. And the discharge capacity of these sprinklers can be selected according to the irrigation requirement and the type of property. And all sprinklers undergo extensive testing. It is suitable to all the areas, particularly on the slopes also it can go on to be provided. And we are going to be talking about that is on the slopes also, which is very, very difficult for any other means of irrigation. That is a form of irrigation, drip irrigation, sprinkler irrigation. Now, to develop irrigation, the government has taken certain type of initiatives. We are going to be talking about national perspective for water resource development. Now, some of these have been taken as one of these that have been taken in this case is going to be Union Minister for Irrigation and Central Water Commission 1980 and a national perspective plan that will go on to entail construction of storage reservoirs on the principal tributaries of the Ganges and the Brahmaputra in India, Nepal and Bhutan. Then interlinking the canal system to transfer surplus water to flow from east to west. And then linking Brahmaputra and its main tributaries with Ganga and Ganga with Mahanadi. That is also going to be a part of it. That is the Himalayan river component, and then interlinking of Mahanadi, Godavari, Ken, Chambal. Of course, partly it has been a custom, and diversion to the other west flowing rivers. That is going to be a plan for a national perspective plan for linking of some of these water bodies as well as flowing water bodies. This has been a government initiative, and then some of these interlinking projects have been picked up. When we are going to be talking about interlinking of these type of projects, we are essentially talking about many of these factors. What we are going to be talking about in this case is that we have a certain type of linkage like Ken Betwa, then Par Tapi Namada, Mahanadi Godavari flood moderation scheme, Manas Sankosh Tista Ganga project. There are going to be some beneficiary states, and such type of a linking will go on to lead to redistribution of water in some way or the other. That is going to be the benefit of it. See, it actually entails an interbasin transfer of water, and it is this interbasin transfer of water that is always going to be mired in a variety of type of problems. Now, some of these problems that you can't even fathom it out, and incidentally, this will be a topic that will be incomplete in this region, largely because of the fact that there is a complete topic that is interlinking of the rivers that has been given to you. It is this interlinking of rivers which have been given to you, that is in contemporary issues, that is where the topic will be dealt in its complete honesty. Not exactly here. It is only a passing reference in this place, only a passing reference, nothing else more than that. But we're going to talk about that is so many benefits of interlinking of the rivers can go on to take place, and needless to say that it will go on to lead to flood control, irrigation. Irrigation, that means we aim to provide surplus water from the northern region to the southern region. So it may go on to prevent drought conditions, it may go on to improve navigation, plus water, plus hydel power generation as well. That is going to be one of these benefits. And accordingly, you're going to find different types of interlinkings that had been there. That is going to be Daman Ganga Panjal link, it is going to be Pak, there is going to be Tapi Namada link. All of these type of links always go on to be effective. To an extent they have been, but then they're going to be coming with much more problems than what we are actually talking about. The government, of course, go on to be taking some steps, and one of these steps that have been taken by the present government in this case is the Pradhanmantri Yojana, PKMSY, that is launched in the year 2015-16. Well, by amalgamating ongoing schemes, it has a lot of objectives, and that's everything is goody about it. Integration of water resources, enhancing the physical access of water in the farmer, and achieve convergence of investment in irrigation. Everything that we're going to be talking of. Now these are government programs and they're going to be talking about Har Khet Ko Pani, per drop per acre, watershed development, and it's in a mission mode of sorts. And when we're going to be talking in mission mode, that means it goes to include surface to minor irrigation, groundwater irrigation, repair, renovation of all the water bodies. That will going to include tanks as well, some of these worn down diversion weirs as well, canals as well, and of course command area development program. Now that is the program that we had talked about, and we have mentioned the real essence of this program had been dealt with that is going to be in regional planning. And when we're going to be talking about it, command area development program, you're going to find that it goes on to comprise certain things like we're going to be talking about on-farm development works. That is, how exactly is it that we can go on to make the farm functional to such an extent that it is in a better position to utilize the waters. So that goes on to comprise of a structural intervention that includes survey, planning, design and execution of on-farm development works, construction of field channels and link channels. We just talked about the fact that a canal has been built. Now there is a farm also. So both of these are going to be linked. And this farm may be, this field, this agricultural field may be something like some 500 meters away from the main canal. Then, of course, command area development will also go on to mean that correction of system deficiencies in this case. And reclamation of waterlogged area, that will going to be with the help of registered water association. It involves training of the people so that they understand how is it that the water is going to be used in a sustainable manner. Now, it is with these things that they plan to improve agriculture productivity, enhance irrigation potential, and the production on a sustainable basis that can go on to take place. With respect to irrigation, the government has also gone on to talk about dam rehabilitation and improvement program. Now, these are some of these government programs that you just require to know that it doesn't require too much amount of a subjective or objective analysis. These are some of these aspects that have been given to you. You are likely to go through all of it, this objective like rehabilitation and improvement of dams and associated associated problems in this place. Then the dam safety has to be made better. Of course, the project management has to be done in a better manner of sorts. And again, some of these government programs like flood management program, accelerated irrigation benefit program, they're all part of a irrigation development in one way or the other.